Hey brothers and sisters, Steve Monette here with another video in my Bible Prophecy Bite series, where we look at Bible scripture, history, and current events that all point to the soon return of Jesus the Messiah. Okay, so first off, I want to say thank you to all of those of you who had reached out to me over the past 2 months or so, looking to see how I was doing and looking to see when my next video is coming out. As you know, I am a paramedic up here in Massachusetts, and my response area was hit pretty hard with this COVID virus. And quite frankly, I spent a very large amount of time at work over the past 2 months. And as you can imagine, the last few months working on a front line in a pandemic has been quite taxing. And in all honesty, I needed a break. And that was the reason for my lack of new videos. And as you can imagine, working on the front lines of a pandemic, and a lot of the things I've witnessed over the past 2 to 3 months, so really since March, has left a mark on this brother's soul. And I think that as a result of that, you're going to see the evidence of that mark in this video today. So today I want to talk about tribulation. And I want to talk about tribulation in the context of Dana Coverstone's recent prophetic dreams. And the reason for this is that many evangelicals have downright dismissed Pastor Dana's dreams as not being from the Lord, because his dreams clearly describe an upcoming time of tribulation in the USA, and his dreams do not make any mention of the rapture of the church. So many people don't like this fact. The evangelical world just will not accept the fact that tribulation comes before rapture. And this is amazing to me because Scripture clearly says that this is the case. After all, tribulation is part of our everyday lives. In fact, tribulation has to be a part of our lives. Jesus told us that we would suffer great tribulation, and he said this in John 16. And also, he said that we must suffer much tribulation in order to gain entrance into the kingdom of heaven. And we read that in Acts 14, verse 22. Jesus then went on to tell John the Revelator in Revelation 7 that the great multitude that was standing before his throne were those that had come out of a time of great tribulation. So the facts are very clear. Scripture is very clear. Entrance into the kingdom of heaven requires much tribulation. Okay? And Jesus described very clearly some of the tribulations that we must endure. He describes famines, pestilences, death, martyrdom, and even wars. And every one of these events has a human cost to them that at times can be unbearable. And we see that human cost every day in the news. Unfortunately, we don't really see much of that type of tribulation here in the United States. We have been quite blessed. Now, that's not to say that we haven't or won't experience tribulation. It's just that statistically, we don't see a lot of that type of tribulation here in the USA. But yet, in spite of all of this, evangelicals here in the USA continue to believe that we do not have to go through great tribulation. And nothing could be further from the truth. So it brings up the question, should I believe the words of Jesus Christ who says that I must go through tribulation? Or should I believe the words of some futuristic prophecy teacher who says that we are going to escape tribulation? Should I ignore the Strong's Concordance definition of tribulation, which is defined as a pressing together, oppression, affliction, distress, and even uses the word dire straits? Should I ignore all of that? Maybe I should ignore all of the world's sufferings and tribulations in this day and age. And just maybe, if I cover my eyes and tell myself it's not happening, then maybe it won't happen, right? Makes sense? Pictures are worth more than 1,000 words. And I'm going to show you a few pictures here just to help you understand what tribulation looks like. Okay? And what I'm about to show you is directly from the Bible onto the front pages of the news and in the media. These examples were taken directly from Matthew 24, or the Olivet Discourse, and in Revelation 6, in the description of the seven seals, which, by the way, when you compare Matthew 24, Olivet Discourse, and the seven seals, they are nearly identical in words and in descriptions. Now, Jesus told us that this world would experience wars and rumors of wars before his return. This first picture that I'm showing you is from World War II, where 6 million Jews were systematically starved, tortured, and then murdered, and then dumped into mass graves. This second picture is from the war in Afghanistan, where a widow meets her husband's casket at Dover Air Force Base. And this third picture is of a child that was burned as a result of the atomic bomb during World War II. Can you see the tribulation on the human soul in these pictures? Of course you can. You'd be hard-pressed not to. Yet evangelicals believe and say that we're not going to go through a time of great tribulation. Jesus also told us that we would experience a time of where nation would rise against nation. Strong's Concordance defines the word nation as ethnos, or ethnic race versus ethnic race. This first picture is from the recent Black Lives Matter violent protest here in the USA. Now, this is a classic example of ethnicity versus ethnicity. This second picture is from the Syrian civil war, where people who live in different parts of Syria are killing each other by the millions simply because of their ethnic race. And this third picture is from the Bosnian Civil War, which was a byproduct of three ethnic groups who basically set out to destroy each other. And over 100,000 people died as a result of that war. Again, I ask you, can you see the tribulation on the faces of the human soul that were caused by these events? Of course you can. Yet evangelicals insist that we are not going to go through a time of great tribulation. Jesus also told us that we would experience famines before his return. Now, these pictures are from various famines around the world during the 20th century only. Estimates that anybody can find on Google show that 70 to 100 million people died as a result of famine. And that's just in the 20th century alone. 70 to 100 million people are dead because of famine. Now, as you're digesting those numbers, I want you to think about how long it takes to die from starvation. It takes a long time. Yet evangelicals say that we are not going to go through a time of great tribulation. Jesus also told us that we would experience martyrdom. This first picture is of ISIS getting ready to slit the throats of Christian men. And here is a very sobering and sad statistic. Almost 1 million Christians were killed for their faith just in the last decade alone. Nearly 1 million people in the last 10 years. Yet evangelicals say that we're not going to go through a time of great tribulation. And then Jesus, of course, told us that there would be pestilences before he came as well. And as a paramedic for the past 20 years, I can tell you that I am intimately familiar with pestilence and disease. Now, this first picture is from the pestilence called cancer, where 10 million people die each year all over the world. 10 million. The second picture is from the COVID pandemic, where 180,000 U.S. citizens have died just in the past 3 months alone. And this third picture is from the flu epidemic of 1917, where 60 million people died. 60 million. Yet evangelicals continue to say that we are not going to go through a time of great tribulation. So, if we as Christians are not going to go through a time of great tribulation, then what should we call it when we suffer disease, illness, death of loved ones, loss of a job, financial destruction, loss of a home, loss of a business, or just misery and heartache? What should we call that? But you see, if I'm a futurist prophecy teacher, then maybe if I just keep repeating the mantra that Christians are not going to go through a time of great tribulation, then maybe everyone will start to believe it someday, right? So, here's my point. For the people that say Pastor Dana's prophetic dreams are not from the Lord because the rapture must happen before this time of tribulation, then ask yourself this question. Did Jesus lie to us when he said that all of us must go through tribulation to get into the kingdom? Make no mistake, this world is going through great tribulation at this very second and moment in time. And we are living in the time of the 7 seals. You see, earthquakes, famines, pestilences, death, wars, and rumors of wars are all just different forms of tribulation, while trumpet and bowl judgments are the wrath of God. We are destined for tribulation. Scripture proves that. But we are not destined for wrath. Again, Scripture proves this. And in all honesty, this is not hard to figure out. Yet some of the so-called brightest scholars in Bible prophecy mix up these two words, tribulation and wrath. And it just befuddles me as to why that occurs. Sometimes I think that it's because prophecy or futurist prophecy teachers like to twist Scripture just so that it fits their particular doctrine. But I can't speak for them. So let me leave you with this final thought for you to consider. The next time you ask the Lord to give the world more time for a great revival here in the USA, remember that you are in essence also asking for Him to continue allowing millions and millions and millions, if not billions of people to continue suffering misery, disease, heartache, and even more tribulation. Because for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Just something for you to think about, okay? As for me, being on the front lines of a pandemic, I have often asked the Lord over these past several months, when is enough enough? And when does it end? Because quite frankly, the tribulations that this world is going through it's mind-numbing. And apparently, now that Pentecost has passed us again, we may just have to go through another period of time of tribulation. I really, really hope that I'm wrong on this one. I would definitely encourage you to check out Dr. Barry Oz videos where he makes an interesting case how Pentecost may be a little bit longer than what even I had believed, which was maximum of 106 days, a minimum of 99 days. So I think he's doing some really great work there, okay? And, wait a minute, one last thing. And here's one last thing I want to talk about. Several people have been making videos stating that there is some sort of an asteroid or asteroid belt or pieces of Planet X or something are going to hit the Earth in possibly September, October, or November of this year, 2020. Do I believe this is going to happen? I literally have no idea. But I would not be surprised because Jesus did say that right before his return, there would be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and that the world would be in total dismay, and the seas would be roaring, most likely because of the changes to the tides, and that men would be running for the caves, and men would be stricken with great fear because of the things that were about to happen. And if this were to happen, this would just be another example of tribulation. And every single solitary Christian must go through tribulation. Whether you want to believe that or not, that's fine. That's up to you. You can cover your eyes, block your ears, whatever you want, ignore Scripture. But just remember, Scripture says that we are not destined to wrath, but we must go through tribulation. So in closing, these next 6 months just might be a time like no other that we've ever seen. But if that is to be, then remember this, that Jesus said, when these things begin to happen, then look up, for our redemption draws near. Thanks for watching.